So we just add sleigh bells. That's how we signify this is a Christmas show now. Welcome to Oddball. I'm Amin Elhassan. I'm still in Miami. And yes, I have a fat lip, so I'm going to sound funny today. But no worries, because I got my man 10-Day Tony here with me. Tony Calatayud from the Levitard Show. He's going to be joining me again today. And
so nice you had me on twice.
I know. Yeah, it's the last two shows of the season, basically, before we go into the Christmas break. And we're going to talk about all the Christmas games, Christmas Day games today. But before we get into that, yesterday I pitched this idea, Tony, that the NBA, in addition to bringing back $10 seats, they also need to do a special kind of cheap menu or whatever, whether you give out vouchers or whatever. Well, turns out Suns owner Matt Ishbia, huge fan of the show, because he came out today and announced the Suns are instituting a $2 value menu at all home games. Popcorn, hot dogs, 16-ounce sodas, and bottles of water, all $2 a piece. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And I think every team in the league should have some option like this. Because, Tony, the reality is the people who want to spend money, or the people who come and have money to spend, they don't want to eat hot dogs. They want to eat like hibachi or whatever is at these arenas. But it's important to make affordable options available to people who can't afford the high-end stuff.
Do you think that a lot of owners are going to follow suit? Or are they going to see this and be like, maybe not for us?
I think maybe not to that extent, but they got to have something. Whether, like I said, it's a $2 hot dog, a $1 hot dog, whatever, or the popcorn or whatever. And I know the biggest issue is that a lot of these items are high return on investment, right? Like
sodas are huge for them,
They cost nothing, and they charge anywhere from like 700 to 800% of whatever the cost is. So that's where a lot of teams are like, oh, that's a moneymaker. But again, I think people will spend money. This is like the number of people say, hey, I just want hot dog and a water. I think it's kind of limited, to be honest with you. I don't think that's going to be a widespread thing. So
for me, it shows how much reach this show has, because we talk about it mere hours later, not even 24 hours later, all of a sudden the Suns are already following suit. And it's almost like you know something.
Well, I mean, I'm plugged in. I like to say to people all the time, man, you guys look at me like I'm some clown, but like I knew people. Well, my mouth is not working. All right. So, like I said, this is the final episode of the year before Christmas and before New Year's and all that stuff. So today is all about making our picks for the Christmas Day games. Now, the odds are subject to change. Obviously, today is not December 25th. So don't come at me, bro. All right, let's start with Spurs at Knicks. Victor Wembanyama at Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena. As of today, the Knicks are 9-point favorites on DraftKings for this noon Eastern game. Now, Tony, do you think that this is a measuring stick game for the Spurs? And if so, how do you think they'll measure up?
I think it's interesting to see Wemby on a massive stage. Like, I'm trying to think of the first time really that Wemby's been on a huge stage, right? Like, has there been one?
I mean,
there's been the Olympics, which is a huge worldwide stage.
Absolutely.
But NBA-wise, with his team.
Last year, because it was a phenomenon, right? Everywhere he went, everyone was like, oh, I got to see Victor Wembanyama. So, and obviously, whenever you're in certain places like Madison Square Garden, everyone makes a big deal of it. But the difference between last year and this year is last year, he was just kind of running out there and playing, and he had a bunch of dudes that were just not knowing how to play with the superstar. This year, he's got Chris Paul, he's got Harrison Barnes, he's got Stephon Castle. These guys know, okay, this is a guy that we need to get the ball. So it's a much more legitimate version of Victor Wembanyama that's walking into Madison Square Garden.
Bigger motivating factor. Wemby going to the Garden being kind of the show for the first time on Christmas Day, or is it the Knicks proving it doesn't matter who you are, if you're coming to the Garden, you're going to get slapped by Cat and by Brunson?
So this is a great segue, because like my thing from the Knicks perspective is we talked about yesterday about like the Bucks, and they've won 13 of the last 16 games, but a lot of those teams aren't good or whatever. But like, the reality is good win streaks, good win totals, good stats on a season level are built on the corpses of all these bad teams that you played, right? Or subpar teams, whatever. So for the Knicks, 9-point favorites, this is because the odds makers are saying, you are clearly better than this Spurs team that's still trying to find its way. You got to take care of business. You can't allow it to be anything other than just a whooping. The problem is, again, stars know. Like, Victor Wembanyama knows it's Christmas. He knows the whole nation is watching, and he knows this building has meaning in the sport of basketball. So kind of feel like whatever that spread is, we're not going to get anything close to the Knicks covering. I think it's going to be a close game. I'm not saying the Knicks won't win. Just saying I think it's going to be a lot closer than 9 points.
I think that Wemby is going to have his way offensively because Knicks don't really have that big defensive stopper for a big like Wemby. Like Cat's not going to go out and guard him like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, the defense hasn't been good in New York this season at all, so he should be able to take advantage.
Let's take the Wemby overs on props. Whatever the Wemby overs are, I know they're going to change from here to there, but I'm going to probably
take overs. Yeah. The only thing I wonder is I guess him guarding Cat, because that's a little different, right? He's going to have to be out on the perimeter, but he's pretty agile and mobile for a guy his size, so maybe actually that bothers Cat as far as the shooting goes. All right. The other thing, when you talk about Wembanyama, do you feel like there's less enthusiasm and excitement about him this year than there was last year? I'm not saying how he's playing. I'm saying in terms of people making a spectacle.
The novelty of
it.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's every year that goes by when the next best thing comes up, you're like, oh wow, this is incredible, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's normal. Now it's commonplace to have a guy who's 7'5" being able to do all the things he did, especially when we saw it in the Olympics. Now we see it for his second season in the NBA. It's like, oh, okay, cool. He's just part of the furniture now. Like Wemby's just going to be incredible.
It's like the new toy, right?
Right.
The toy isn't broken. There's nothing wrong with the toy, but it's not the new toy.
It's just not the newest one.
I played with this toy.
Like I'm good. I saw it. I know what it is.
I know what it is, right? And then as far as has the Chris Paul edition been everything you hoped and dreamed?
I think it's been really cool to see Chris Paul, like the last embers of his career. We talked about it when I was on the trivia show. Like he's been on 19 teams in the NBA, right? And it's like every team that he's been on, he's had to almost take an interesting, different leadership role. Yeah. And this one is easy because he has somebody that he can just literally just turn it. Like you talk about Lob City, it's like throw it up to him. He's going to be up there somewhere and he's going to catch it and do something with the ball.
So the cool thing I said about Chris Paul is there's a part of him that's helping Wembanyama like that, just finding him, just knowing, hey, guys, we're running this one for Victor in a way that nobody was doing last year, right? But then there's another part of this that helps him mentally. I think years from now, Victor Wembanyama is going to be like, dude, I thought I knew basketball, and then I played with Chris Paul, and my knowledge base grew tenfold. And like an example of that I always think about is Steve Nash. I remember we had a play called Elbow, and the elbow series, you could do a million different things. You would throw it to the big, usually Boris Diaw at the elbow, and now Steve can either go in for a handoff, he can go wide for a pin down on the strong side, he can go weak side for a pin down. There were other guys cutting. There was all sorts of different wrinkles and stuff. So the way teams defended us was like, they knew the farther away from the elbow Boris catches, the worse the spacing is for the rest of the play. So Steve said, hey, next time they try to fight you off that elbow, fight them back, but let them win. So you're like, oh, no, come on, whatever. And then he said, keep coming all the way up until now you send a step-up screen.
Right.
And now this defense that was geared to defend this elbow series action where guys are waiting on the wings for a pin-down screen, where the guy guarding Boris is like just worried about the catch, where the guy guarding Steve knows that Steve's going to hit and then
go somewhere.
Now they're playing a pick and roll. Those guys weren't prepared for that. The ball handler guy was not prepared to get screened. The screen defender, the big defender, was not ready to help.
Right.
And the guys on the wings also are not ready to get in help for Steve Nash dribble penetration or a Boris Diaw pick and roll or whatever. So that's like a small example of like Steve noticing something.
And that was his prerogative. Like he did it. It wasn't like a coaching thing where like, hey, Steve, do this. It was like him on the fly being like, oh, I know if they do this.
Next time they do that, we're going to do this.
Damn.
And so there's so many times I think about Chris Paul's probably telling Victor, hey, next time they do this to you, do this. Right. And that's stuff that's not, like I said, not on the playbook, nothing.
That's experience.
That's experience, and that's a good teacher. All right. So Wemby will get to experience Christmas in New York. So we made him a very special Christmas card. Oh, happy holidays is that from Oddball? What's it say?
I don't know. He could probably reach the top of the Rockefeller tree.
That's a basketball signed by him. So I guess happy holidays from himself, and he's dunking on Rockefeller's at 30 Rock. Okay. Congratulations. And then there's Elf, and then there's Santa in the background. Why not?
All
right.
Christmas spirit, right?
All right. Whatever. From an ex-Spurs rookie to a current one, Stephon Castle's the new leader on the Kia Rookie of the Year ladder. DK betting favorite now to win Rookie of the Year after Jared McCain got hurt at plus 160. Did the Spurs hit on a long-term building block next to Wemby?
you don't stumble into being the rookie of the year for no reason, right? If you're not good, you're not going to be atop the rookie of the year leaderboards. And of course, McCain was playing awesome until he tore his meniscus and like had to get that fixed. But when you look at what Castle's been able to do, like you start seeing, oh, wait a second, 2000 something when they started drafting all these guys and then they started maturing into the system. Maybe Stephon Castle is that next guy where you can put him in a Manu role or the Tony Parker role of like building blocks with Wemby being the Tim Duncan.
And I think it's important. Like, this guy's a winner. He comes from a winning background and tradition. So I think like it's important to stack your roster, not only with talent, but also people who bring those good habits, because that's what you want to be about. All right, final question. Your pick, Spurs or Knicks?
I'm going to go Knicks.
Knicks covering, -9?
I'm going to go Knicks -9.
Wow.
I think offensively, they're going to do a couple things. They're going to disrupt Wemby. Defensively, like him being a defensive stopper, and I think they'll cover.
I think he's gonna put up a show, and I think
wait.
I think the Knicks win, but I think it'll be closer than 9. All right, the second game is Timberwolves versus Mavericks. That's at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. The Mavs are 3.5-point favorites on DraftKings. Both of these teams kind of had slow starts. Which team do you think has improved more rapidly?
Mavs have been insane the last 16 games, like 14-2 or something. Like they're absolutely putting on. I know Luka's going to be out this next game coming up, but it just feels like this is the best game of the day, right?
Yeah.
We can both agree on as far as the Christmas slate.
What we're actually going to get versus what was on paper.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this
maybe
Western Conference Finals rematch, right?
Maybe there's another one.
A sneaky one?
There's a sneaky one.
There's a sneaky
that
one.
always comes up. But for now, this is a great
matchup. It just feels like Luka's playing on another level as usual. Like,
yeah. I'm really interested in Minnesota since Anthony Edwards called them out. They've been a lot better. The defense has been phenomenal.
Night and day.
So now you walk into this game where there are stakes here. You are already 0-1 against the Mavs on the season series. You don't know where the season's going to go. You might end up tied on the last day of the year, and then this might be the difference between
home court
or not. So I think there's a little bit of sense of urgency there for Minnesota. I think Anthony Edwards, again, the guy that responds to the bright lights, whether it's the playoffs or his first Christmas Day game. I don't know, man. I kind of like T-Wolves plus 3.5.
I don't hate it. PJ Washington's been awesome.
Yeah, for Dallas. Like,
he's come off strong. I know he was injured earlier to start the season, but with him in the lineup, they're a dynamic team. And they know how they want to play. That's the thing about the Mavericks over the Thunder and maybe a lot of other teams is they know what their identity is now. Right. So it's 77.
It's 77. It's Kyrie 11.
And we're going to make it happen.
And then bigs are rolling hard and dunking, guys on the wings.
Getting ready to shoot.
Yep. Like they know how they want to play. So I think
I don't hate your pick, though.
I think Anthony Edwards, you talk about like, hey, man.
That moment.
Hey, man, you going to play on Christmas? I think he shows up. He always shows up for these big things. So that'll do that. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about the other 3 games on Christmas Day. So stick around. Welcome back to Oddball. I'm Amin Elhassan filling in. Today is 10-day Tony Kaladiud of the Lebatard Show. All right, let's get right back into it. It's Christmas Day games. Next up, we got Sixers and Celtics at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Do they wish they didn't have this at 5 p.m. Eastern?
I think they wish they didn't have this. There are no lines on this because we have no idea if anyone in the Sixers will be alive by Christmas. They might have to do like the catastrophe draft or whatever they call it. But I don't want to talk about Sixers Celtics per se. I want to talk about something very interesting because the Sixers are in a weird position right now, Tony. The season is going nowhere, and they have to ask themselves, are we better off tanking? And before everyone says, oh, why would they do that? Well, they owe a first-round pick to Oklahoma City that's top 6 protected. So the worst thing that could happen is he finished with the 7th or 8th worst record and end up with the 7th or 8th or 9th pick or whatever. And that goes to Oklahoma City.
Right.
So you almost have to make sure that we can get there. Now, I know what you're wondering. Wait a second. How do they have that pick going to Oklahoma City? It was because of a deal done 4 years ago.
Okay.
Almost 4 years ago to the day. Now, what happened was before that, the Sixers had signed Al Horford from the Celtics. Remember, Al Horford was the Celtics. They're very successful. They're going to conference finals. Sixers sign him. This is when they let Jimmy Butler go, right? And they're thinking, hey, this guy's going to fit in perfectly with Embiid, and he can back him up, and he can play alongside him, whatever. Pay him a lot of money. It doesn't work out. He looks old. He looks washed. He's like, hey, I'm going to retire. Just trade me somewhere. They end up sending him to Oklahoma City because Oklahoma City says, hey, we got Danny Green from the Lakers, 3-time champ. You guys want him? He's a shooter. And the Sixers like, yeah, that fits. So they send him over and say, what else do you want? We want your first-round pick. But the one that they sent was a 2025 first-round pick.
Ooh.
Top 6 protected this year, and the protections change down the line. Now, here's the crazy part. They then take Al Horford and flip him to Boston for Kemba Walker in the first-round pick. So the guy that they thought was going to retire, or at the very least was the other conference, a few months later, he's back in their division.
Down the street.
Torturing them. And obviously the Celtics have laughed to the bank ever since, and the Sixers still are trying to kind of get back to where they once were, or where they once wanted to be, excuse me. But I just thought it was crazy that on Christmas Day, as the Sixers' whole world is collapsing, they're like, oh my God, should we tank so that this pick doesn't go? They look across the court.
There he is.
That's his fault.
There he is.
That guy right there. Who's your pick, Sixers or Celtics? I'm kidding.
Come on. Come on.
All right, next up, we got Lakers and Warriors. This is the game. Look, I get it. These teams have been struggling recently, but Christmas Day, you're telling me LeBron and Steph Curry? These guys understand the moment. We talked about Anthony Edwards earlier. These guys understand the moment. They understand the stage. And they are at the surest thing to ratings for the NBA.
For sure.
The one of the biggest blows, as people talk about ratings all the time, was LeBron going to the Western Conference. Because as long as they had Steph and LeBron in opposite time zones, in opposite
you're always getting eyes.
Always getting eyes, and we always had the chance that they'll meet each other in the finals, right? That's always going to sell. These two guys hasn't let up. Standing-wise, not so much, right? We know the Lakers are really reeling. It's SOS time for them. The Warriors are in an evaluation period because they got the Dennis Schroeder deal. But like I talked about on Basketball Illuminati with Jake Fisher, there's a new rule in the CBA that allows them, if they want, to repackage Dennis Schroeder
for another pick,
for
somebody else.
Maybe that's with Kuminga and Andrew Wiggins to get you Jimmy Butler. Who knows? So I ask you, first and foremost, if you're the Warriors, do you think Schroeder in and of himself is going to work, or do you think this is going to be something that just bridges them to the next thing?
Probably bridges them to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like his deal's nice, and it's going to be something attractive for other teams that want to be able to get that and try to move somebody else. But as far as like on court, right? It feels like they don't have that secondary ball handler outside of like Podziemski, even though he has been struggling like crazy, but they don't have that off-ball scorer, that off-ball like can make something happen playmaker in a way that Schroeder, we've seen him do it across different teams, different countries, different continents. and to me, like it's a good fit, but for how long?
Right. And like ultimately, I think he makes them better. How much better? Because that's what this question is about. It's if this was a deal and that's it, then you're like, okay. But because the nature of his contract, the nature of Kuminga's contract, Wiggins' contract, you have an opportunity to go out there and perhaps, like I said, get a Jimmy Butler.
Get that third guy to package with Steph and Draymond.
Right. And now you're saying, okay, we've upgraded ourselves. We've given up something for the future in terms of Kuminga, but there's a question, maybe he'll never be anything more than what he is now.
Is he superstar ready? Like in a couple of years?
He's not ready. He's not ready. That's the biggest question is, can he be consistently great? He has great moments.
And then bad moments.
Can he be consistently great? And when you have a guy like Steph Curry at his age and Draymond at his age is like, we need to get this thing going now. I can't wait until you figure it out. So he might figure it out 3 years down the line, but then the window is, if
basically
not closed, it's small, much smaller. You get Jimmy Butler, the window's right now. We're in win now mode. And I think when you have a superstar, teams operate in that way. All right. The other thing from this game, after winning NBA Cup this year as an assistant coach for the Bucks, Darvin Ham had some interesting quotes about his time with the Lakers. He discussed his surprise firing and being ridiculed online. Here's some excerpts from an interview with Mark J. Spears, the Hall of Famer. He says, quote, to do as well as I did, I swear to God, anywhere else, I'm probably looking for an extension. It's being reported like I'm just throwing some lineups against the wall to see what sticks. Dude, that was the most disappointing stuff. He also brought up that the Lakers went from a play-in team to the Western Conference Finals, said people focus on the loss to Denver and not on beating Memphis and Golden State to get to that spot. Is he lying?
He's halfway lying. Right? Like, because there's a clear and obvious reason why he wasn't good enough to get them past the Nuggets, right? Like, it just feels
Nikola
like
Jokic.
Nikola Jokic. 2, it just feel like he was constantly getting out schemed. Am I out of pocket for saying that he was getting out schemed by coaches in the Western Conference?
I don't think some, like, again, and Michael Malone out schemes a lot of guys. Like, there's no shame in that, number one. Number two, this is something I talk about all the time. Pick a young player in the league, any young player. Tyler Hero, right? We saw Tyler Hero early in his career, moments, and then moments of and then he worked, and now he is where he is right now, which is a really good player.
Borderline all-star.
We all accept that young players can improve with experience, with sharpening certain skills, with, more coaching and all that stuff. We don't give coaches the same grace. We're like, yo, if you weren't like instantly, immediately awesome, that's it, dude, you're done. And I think Darvin Ham, he wasn't perfect, but again, you gave him 2 years. Like, is that enough time?
Does JJ get 2 years? That's the thing, right? Like, now it's the push and pull of, okay, are we going to allow JJ Redick to get seasoned in this coaching aspect? Or is he going to be 2 years, LeBron's gone, and then you're looking around saying, well, what do we do here?
And I'm going to tell you right now, part of it is how JJ manages this stuff, right? Like, because he does a lot of like I'm Pop, I'm ornery, whatever, but like, yo, Pop got 5 rings doing that.
Pop can do that.
Pop can earn the right to do that, to be ornery like that. He wasn't ornery at the gate like that. So I think JJ's got to understand, man, like if you don't win people over hearts and minds, it could turn on you real quick, and then you've got no allies at that point. What's your pick? Lakers 4.5, plus 4.5, or Warriors minus 4.5?
I think we're gonna have a cool vintage moment between LeBron and Steph, where they're gonna go back and forth. I think LeBron's been gearing up for this game, the last couple of weeks probably. I'm gonna go with Steph and the Warriors though. I think Steph has one of those Christmas Day games where it's like he puts 40 points up, and you're like, oh yeah.
And let's not forget Dennis Schroeder got a little revenge in him. This dude doesn't forget. All right. Last game of the night, Nuggets versus Suns, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Suns are 2-point favorites on DraftKings. Suns are 13-2 in KD plays, by the way. I think
pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's lost on people. Depending on how many games he plays this year, if he hits the 65, I would not be surprised if there's a large number of people who are like, that's the MVP right there.
Really?
Like, if they continue to play great when he plays, and he plays 65 games, dude, how can you not?
Over Giannis, if Giannis continues his current stretch,
Giannis,
that's the thing. Like
SGA, Jokic, like they're all having great years. I'm telling you that Kevin Durant deserves a spot in the MVP conversation bar. That's all I'm saying. All right, Nuggets +2, Suns -2.
I'm gonna go with the MVP bar mainstay. I'm gonna go with KD. I'm gonna go with the Suns. He's playing out of his mind right now. Like he's just on another level. Even though Jokic is too, but those non-Jokic minutes with the Nuggets,
it's a killer.
How can you avoid that?
You
can't play 48.
Well, again, it's the difference between Devin Booker having the season he's having and Jamal Murray having the season that he's having. Two Kentucky guards having two very wildly different seasons. All right, so those are the games. Now we want to play some
fun slate.
Fun slate. We want to play something different here. The DK is doing the king of the court. So which player will have the most points, the most rebounds, and the most assists? Which 3 players, I guess, all day long throughout all those games.
Ooh, assists. I'm gonna go CP3.
I like that one.
Assists. Yeah. I'm gonna go AD rebounds.
Rebounds, nice.
I'm gonna go AD rebounds.
Interesting.
And I'm gonna go. This is gonna be spicy. I'm gonna go Cat points.
See, I'm going Anthony Edwards points.
Okay, I like that.
I'm going Luka Doncic assists. And rebounds, I think I'm going to go, let's go Victor Wembanyama. Why not? All right. Real quick before we go. So one last Christmas theme story for the day. During a break and play in Charlotte, the Hornets hosted the Sixers on Monday night. There's a child shown being given a PS5 on the Jumbotron, only for them to take the gift away once cameras are off. There's such a backlash that the Hornets have to make a statement about this. I'm not going to read the statement, but they basically say, yeah, we dropped the ball on this.
They didn't say drop the ball.
What'd they say?
There's no way they said drop the ball.
Yeah. The skit included bad decision-making and poor time. But we turned the ball over. Excuse me. Incredible.
There's no way.
My thing is this. Whenever you do skits like that, because I've worked in game ops in the past, you always have a ringer. Like it's someone who already knows. You don't do it to real fans, Charlotte.
To a kid.
What are you doing? How? Like, what was the intention? Take away their draft picks. That's what I say.
Crazy. Give the kid a PS5.